story. Welcome back to another card making video here on my YouTube channel. I hope you are all well today, and I am very glad you are here. Today I'm going to be using the all-to-new March Mini Delight set again, and this time we're going to make a card using one focal color along with some neutral colors to really make our focal image pop out. And I'm going to show you how using that same color throughout different elements of your card can really bring the card all together. So let's get started. I've gone ahead and prepped a few things in advance, as always. As I said, we're going to be using the March Mini Delight from Alta New and the coordinating die cut. I'm also going to be doing some embossing using a stencil. Stencils are a fantastic way to bring interest to your card, and they have such a great price point as well. I have a top folding 4.5 by 5.25 inch note card, as well as a piece of Neenah Solar White cardstock that we will use for our die cutting and stamping. We're going to be starting with our stenciling and embossing first. As I said previously, you can really get a lot of use out of stencils. They are very versatile and they have such a great price point. Most stencils are less than $10, and as I said, you can just do so many things with them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape my cardstock to the back of my stencil to hold it in place. I'm going to just use a little bit of painter's tape and stick that down. I should have actually kind of rubbed off a little bit of the adhesive on my clothing. It ended up kind of sticking more to my platform and my spellbinders than I really wanted it to. So just a little tip, if you're going to tape down your stencil and you don't have any low tack tape, just make sure you kind of run the tape along like your clothing or something. It just kind of peels off a little bit of that adhesive. I'm going to grab my Spellbinders Platinum 6, and as I said, we're going to be doing the embossing sandwich, which for me is to lay down the stencil with the card or with the cardstock face down, and then I'm going to grab my tan mat here and lay that down. This is what is going to allow it to emboss. And then my blue embossing plate. And I'm just going to run that through my machine. I'm going to run it forward and then I'm going to run it back as well, just so I make sure I get a good impression. And as I said, you'll see in a second, I should have probably taken some of the stickiness off of my tape because it was well stuck down there. Okay, just gonna peel that off of there. And then you'll see we have this very nice embossed image. And on one side, it's sort of embossed, and on the other side, it's debossed. And so we're gonna have some fun with that in a little bit. Right now, though, we're gonna go on and do our stamping and our die cutting. If you saw my previous video with this stamp set, you'll know how we did our stamping and our on die cuts. I'm going to do the same exact procedure. If you didn't get a chance to watch that video, go back and watch it again, and it'll provide you some more detailed information about that. So right now, just sticking down a plain piece of paper to do my first image on. And for our bold color, for our focal point, we're going to be using Candied Apple. This is a very bright, vibrant red Distress Oxide ink. It's a beautiful color. I love it. You'll see me use it a lot. I'm going to get that inked up. Not really, too concerned about getting a great impression. This is just our base image, so we'll know where we need to place our die cut and our die cut piece in there. So I'm going to grab my negative and I had already cut out the die and the negative piece. So just as in the last video, I lined up my negative space, keeping my stamp over there on the MISTI right where it was before, popped in the die cut, and now I'm going to get a good ink on it this time because this will be our actual piece we'll use on our card. Get that in there, come in with my little tool and get a good impression there. And I did also put some temporary adhesive on the back of that die cut so that it would stay in place. See, I do remember and learn from my previous mistakes. Another good stamping on there. Get that all in there. I'll lift that up. And here is our pretty little red flower that we have. Okay. And it just does make a beautiful image in the center of our card. Okay, so moving on to the next part. I'm going to do the center image. I have another piece of Nina Solar White cardstock, 5.5 inches long, and I think if I remember right that it was about 2 7/8 inches in height. I forgot to actually write down the measurements. So I'm going to stick this, instead of using my stick and stamp mat, I'm just using a piece of grid paper that comes with the MISTI, and I'm going to use this transparency sheet. This transparency sheet is from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm going to use that center line to help me line up my stamps along the center so that I make sure that they're all in one line. And I'm going to take and make just a little mark around each of the top corners of the transparency sheet. So when I go to do it, the second flower, I can line it up again. I had to use the grid paper because the transparency sheet kept sticking to the stick and stamp mat when I tried to pick it all up. So that's why I didn't use that here. So these are going to be our two neutral flowers. And I'm just using the flower that we've already cut to put in the center as sort of a guideline so I can see where those two outer flowers need to go. Lining them up in the same direction, making sure that that little divot that I use as my guideline for this flower is in that same direction at the bottom. And then just using my magnet to hold the transparency sheet in place, and then I'm going to just get that where I want it to be and make a couple more adjustments, and then I'll close it. Oh, hey, note to self, when you use the make sure you move the magnet out of the way, because you can see here I didn't, and it was weird. So, but what happens is it picks up that transparency sheet, and then you just move the transparency sheet out of the way. And our neutral color is going to be Lost Shadow. This is quickly becoming one of my favorite Distress Oxide inks. It's one of the newer colors from Tim. I love it. It is just a beautiful, soft gray. I'm going to just stamp that down, get that good impression with my little air hockey tool, because I mean, that's what it looks like. It looks like a little air hockey tool. Pop that up and adjust and then I put the transparency sheet back in using my two little guidelines or little marks that I made up there at the top in the previous one. I'm going to go to the other side and do the same thing again using the center, close that down, move the magnet this time, and then again stamping it with Lost Shadow ink. That good impression on there. And there's our two base flowers. I think I went ahead and did it again. It must have been like a piece of dog hair. There's dog hair everywhere in my house. So now we're going to go back to our background piece, and I wanted to add a little more interest. So I'm going to use this Distress mica spray. It's just a cool little spray that you can use. This one is brushed pewter. I have it laid down in an old shoebox just to keep it from, just to control the splatter and everything. I'm just going to spray that, and it just adds sort of a grungy, fun element to it. Came in and just kind of sopped up a little bit of the excess. I didn't want it to be soaking wet because I didn't use watercolor paper. So like I said, just trying to add a little sparkle, a little interest in there. I sprayed it a couple more times and did the same thing. And then you can see there's our pretty little grungy-esque type background. I'm going to set that off to the side to dry. Once it was all dry, this is where we're going to use our bold color, our focal color, that candied red. And I'm going to come in and just run a little bit of that color along the edge. It's bringing that color into other parts of the card, other elements of the card, so that it all kind of ties together. If we just had the red in our flower, that it would stand out, but it would stand out in sort of an awkward way. Doing the same thing with our center panel with our lost shadow flowers there. Just going to come in and quickly, very carefully run along the edges here. Nothing too fancy. This also saves you on weight and paper. You don't have to add another piece of cardstock behind there. So I'm just inking up just the edges here, going along there. There are just a lot of simple things in card making you can do that will add just that little bit of interest to really make your card pop. So next I'm going to go ahead and do the sentiment. I chose to use Altenews You Are set. This is a great little set. It has a lot of different sayings. You are capable, you are wonderful, you are blessed. I'm going to use this perfectly wonderful sentiment. I'm just going to add it to a strip of paper down here. We're going to cut it down and add it to our card. So again, as always, just taking some time to get it lined up. This is another point where I could have used the transparency sheet to make sure it was perfectly straight, but I felt pretty good where it was or how I got it lined up. So coming in with my Simon Says stamp, intense black ink, that's my favorite sentiment black ink to use. It's very crisp. Pop that down, get our good impression there. And now y'all know I gotta stamp it twice. Gotta stamp your sentiments twice. I mean, I guess you don't have to, but I do. So there we go. Stamp that down. And then you can see that'll go down there at the bottom. I went ahead and just layered up the card all the way, built it up as normal, just added the background and then added the center panel. And then I popped up the card or that center flower on some dimension adhesive. And then to add a little bit of final sparkle to match the sparkle in our background, I just went ahead and added some Spectrum Noir glitter pen here. Not all over, not in every petal, just a few kind of random ones. I always think that if you're going to have sparkle in one element of your card, you should probably tie it in with at least one other little area of sparkle. Don't do things in just, for me personally, I would recommend don't do things in just one area. You need something else to sort of anchor it into the rest of the card. So I just kind of went in and finished that and got that, and I'll zoom in a little bit so hopefully you can kind of see some of that sparkle on there. It's not overpowering, but when it catches the light, it's just really pretty. And then that pretty much finishes our card for today. Here's a couple more close-up looks for you. There's more pictures on my blog. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am happy you were here. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.